My name is Scotty Embree, and I have something to say. I grew up in a town called Irondequoit that was in upstate New York. It's just outside of Rochester, New York. And my mother grew up in Rochester, and my father grew up in Wyoming, in Kemmerer, Wyoming. And his father and grandfather came from the Fee family, who were the family who founded Berea College. Berea College was founded by people who wanted to have education for poor people, and that meant whites and blacks. So it was founded before the Civil War for whites and blacks and men and women. And Fee was outspoken, the founder of the college, was outspoken in his views against slavery. He believed that all people were equal. The one thing that Fee learned from while serving at this military outpost was that you would need to be equal to go through an education like this. So the town was divided up, and the members of the church who had property sold pieces of their property to the blacks who were coming in, so that everybody who had a piece of land had somebody of the other race on at least one corner. And if you were white, you had to go through an interview establishing that you were not biased or racist in order to get in. So it was kind of a unique town. My dad worked for a division of Kodak in Rochester, New York. In college, my third and fourth year, I got into the honors program, which meant I had finally extra time. I only had to do 2 seminars, and we did our own work for them, which meant I had more time. And so my junior year, I worked at a factory where I was placed with the women, and we worked in accounting, and the men worked in another area along an assembly line. And so I did that, got into a whole different circle of friends. And my junior year, in the summer, I was doing that during the day, but I was didn't have anything to do at night. And I would always listen to the radio. So at that point, I heard an advertisement for working at a settlement house. And so I thought, oh, that would be cool, because I was drawing a lot and I liked kids. So I thought, well, I'll try writing a letter and see if I could get to volunteer there at night. And I ended up getting the place, but I had never been in that part of town. And I also thought it would be poor people, but that would be black and white. And I went there, and everybody was black. And it was really fun. People liked my ideas. And so I started going there at night. And so we would do that, and we would get to know each other. We would hang out a lot. Almost everybody was a college student who was in this, running this program. So it was we ran the program. We happened to be doing it at the settlement house, but there's no older people or staff. And what was most fun was at night, we would hang out at Bob's house, and people would come and talk to us, and they'd want to know our stories for why we were there and how we were finding Rochester. And they told their stories. One night, a black chemist came in, and from Kodak, and he talked about how he started to do voting in car registration, his community work. And he got called in, and they said to him, his manager said to him, "Oh, it's really nice you're doing volunteer work, but we're worried about if it's taking away from your time at work." And it was just like, wow, you know. So we heard a lot of stories about people. And we also started figuring out that it would be fun to take the sixth graders off for a weekend where they could meet other professionals that they didn't get a chance to meet. So we organized that and went off by a bus, and that really went well. It was fun. And the night that we came back, race riots broke out in Rochester. It changed my life. The people I met at the settlement house, the students I met, and the adults that I met, the neighborhood people that I met in organizing afterwards in the union. So when I went to New York and started graduate school, my grandmother always felt and always promoted that you spend your whole life learning. You don't have to stop at a particular point, or because you stop and get involved in something else, it doesn't mean that you don't go back to learning. So in my life, the way that it worked out, you know, with the New York City going bankrupt, you know, big changes in jobs, Reagan, Patco, upheavals in what you could do as work, that whatever I took up, I would also be learning about what I was getting into. So I went into health and safety. So on one hand, I knew some about health and safety from going to postdoc in epidemiology. But then it meant when I got a job working with the unions, then I needed to know more. So I took training from OSHA. I studied unions I taught in the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. And then that kind of moved more into printing and publishing as the unions no longer had jobs. And I then worked with mass layoffs. So it was with a couple of thousand people who were laid off from steel, or another couple of thousand who were laid off. So we'd work, so I was always thinking about work and always thinking about how you could go from one line of work to another. Because in Jersey, with those huge layoffs, they were never going to work again in those jobs. So then what can you be trained in that would have jobs? And what have you done in your past that you could go and have again? You know, for example, people who cut hair. That was like employment, and probably more than you would have otherwise. And also with my students, so I worked on doing work histories with people, and how you could, what skills that you received from what you were doing now, and how that could be used for a job going forward. My dad and his generation, they grew up with one job all their life. And I had like 3 or 4 careers. So things, I don't want to say things never work out the way that you think it will be, but at first I was terrified of leaving academia. And I also worried about, oh, what will people think if I am doing this for a living? It's so different. And then what happened was I got more used to the process and more excited about the different lines of work that I took up and who was involved in them. Like when I moved into technology, who was already there? But teachers, teachers who had been laid off, PATCO workers were there. You know, it was like, and younger people who were already learning these skills, and older people who came from like different backgrounds. Like a lot of people at IBM grew up as farmers, and mill workers, and in the military, and then they learned skills, and then got these other jobs. And the part with Berea was that Berea always emphasized that you got a degree that had the arts. So it was different than a vocational school. But it was, I was always interested in vocational school. Also, like, what did they do there? So Berea made a combination to give people experience in different types of work. And I always thought that made a big difference. And it made a big difference. It made that you could explore life. You didn't have to be in one thing forever. And then that's not even possible anymore. So